Hey guys, welcome back to Screen Snapshots. Today, I am going to recap a 1994 drama film, Name of Love and Shadow. So, let's begin. Irene is a magazine editor who lives in 1973, its military period, and there had been a military coup. The military government had declared a state of emergency, and everyone, most especially the privileged ones in the society, had taken the state of emergency so seriously that they improved it to the phrase "see no evil, says no evil and tells no evil." Her mother, as an individual, had also attached more relevance to the phrases so much that they don't interfere with anything that doesn't concern them, so she can take them to the great social status she wishes to get them to. She lives at the Will of God Manor, an old family house that her mother has turned into a nursing home, so she can sustain the family after her mother left. Her life is restricted to her small family members, that's Rosa, Cleo, her dog, her mother, and the old ones at the nursing home, some of which include a man they call Colonel and a woman named Madame Josefina. She is engaged to be married to her cousin, Gustavo, who is also in the military, and her life is quite simple until her eyes get opened. That day, her mother calls her to the room. She sees her mother with several gift items from Brazil, and her mother tells her she has told Rosa to drop them in her room. She also tells her mother that she is going out, and when her mother asks her what she should do if Gustavo calls, she reassures her mother that Gustavo would not call. Another woman, Maria Elena, is visited by a doctor, Francisco, and she goes to talk to him. The doctor reassures her to narrate all she has been through, and she narrates how she was blocked by the road by some men, and their car was upturned. She says the man hit them and injured them. They kept begging for help, but they refused. That point, she was thinking about her son, Gabriel, and she says she wished she had died during the whole issue. She takes a cigarette to cool her atmosphere, and she continues. She says the man asks her to do what he wants if she doesn't want him to kill her husband, so she accepts. She watches as the man touches her body and molests her while her husband is in the room beside her. She says the man left, and when he returned, she heard two voices and extra hands on her body. She couldn't stop them. On the other hand, a photographer, Francisco, goes to Irene's magazine store to look for her. He asks at the reception, but he sees her assistant, who takes him to her office immediately. As she sees him, she asks if he is the photographer seeking a job, and the first question she asks is if he is on any governmental list. He tells her he isn't on the blacklist, so he proceeds to show her samples of his works. Instead of looking at them, she asks him if he is hungry and invites him for lunch. At the restaurant, she asks him about any of her pieces that he had read, and he tells her about one of her pieces about super hormones, where she uses a phrase that conception is rebellion. She is impressed by him, and she tells him that their job has some words that shouldn't be said, words like ass, abortion, and he adds freedom. She notices he isn't someone shy to talk about the system, since everyone avoids that conversation, so she asks him again if he isn't on any blacklist. He explains that probably his father, who is an anarchist that retired in Spain, or his brothers, Jose and Javier, are on the list, but he is not. He is a psychologist who has realized that his way of thought can't work in that contrary, and he has decided to find another job that isn't just wedding or birthday photography. She employs him and asks him to pick her up at home the next day for work. The waiter brings the bill, insists on paying it, and touches her hands. The following day, he goes to the Will of God Manor to pick her up. He meets her mother, who doesn't spare any time to tell him that she is engaged. She tells him they will interview a woman, Evangeline, who is rumored to have the power to do miracles. She takes his bike and rides behind him. He asks her about Gustavo, and she tells him she had been engaged with Gustavo as a child, and he is a captain. She tells him about one of Gustavo's favorite poems about bridegroom of death, and Francisco stops the bike. He tells her Gustavo is a fascist, and only them use such phrases, but she denies it, and they continue their journey. They reach Evangeline's house, and they get to know she is coming out at noon. By 12, she comes out for her miracles. As they take her pictures and others ask her for help, the military arrives. She tries to tell them Francisco works for her and shows her card, but they rough-handle Francisco. The commander calls his subordinate, Predelio, asking him if Evangeline is his sister. The spirit in the young girl causes fire around The commander thinks it's his enemy, so he starts shooting around. When Irene confronts him, he says Cordelio had confided in him about his sister's issue, and he wants to solve it. He goes to hold Evangeline, but she pushes him away and throws him into the mud. She goes nearer to him and hits him again. He stands up and asks his soldiers to follow him, although he takes the rim of Francisco's camera with him. As they return home, Irene tells him they will get another shot at the issue, and she pecks him goodnight. He meets her some days later and gets angry because he hasn't seen her since the weekend. He asks if Gustavo is around and asks her for dinner. She agrees to have dinner with him that Thursday. Gustavo also joins them. He refuses to shake a homosexual man, which Irene introduces to him, and this angers Francisco. He follows the man home, and they talk. That Thursday, Irene visits his home. She gets closer to his father, who is a fascist, and his mother also tells him to marry Irene. Although he tells her she is engaged, Francisco's brother tells Francisco to ensure he finds out the names of the men who molested Maria, so he goes to interview her again. He tells her to tell him their names, so they can get punished. Later, he goes to find Evangeline again with Irene. However, when they get there, Evangeline's mother tells her the commander has taken the girl, and her son is imprisoned too. She promises the crying woman that she will find Evangeline. That statement changes her life. She gets into all the issues and atrocities done by the soldiers. She searches for Evangeline and enters a hospital with mutilated humans who have been killed by the police. She can't stand it, so Jose asks Francisco to take her out. After waiting outside, she tells him they should return to the office. While waiting by the tree, he goes to kiss her, but she stops, telling him that she has delayed Gustavo and he had waited for her, so she would marry him. They return to his house, but when they get there, they see Francisco's brother, Javier, on the tree. He has committed suicide. After his funeral, Francisco tells her that his brother isn't always like that. He had a life before his life was destroyed by the military, and Irene should be careful not to have issues with the wrong ones. Evangelina's mother, Digma, tells her how to find Commander Ramirez. She dresses seductively and confronts Ramirez, who says he had released Evangeline the day before and Cordelio had also been transferred. She leaves to meet a colonel working with Ramirez, and although he tries to touch her, she tells him they can do that next time, and she records all his statements about Ramirez. She meets with Francisco again and shows him the recording where the colonel says Ramirez raped Evangelina and came back with pick and hoe, signifying Evangelina has been buried. He tells her that his brother works with a cardinal, gathering evidence against the military, and they can work together. Digma also visits, and they ask her for where Cordelio has hidden. She gets Cordelio's location from Digma and visits him by the mountain. After providing him with clothes, he reveals where Ramirez hides his body. She goes there with Francisco, and when she sees the bodies there, she feels like throwing up. Francisco manages to take some pictures, although he feels nauseated too. After the investigation, they rest by the mountain together. While there, he starts kissing her, and they proceed to have sex. They take all the evidence they have to his brother, who, in turn, takes it to the church. The church investigates the mountain, and they see all the bodies. Irene watches the news about it with Francisco, and her mother comes out angrily, claiming Francisco has corrupted her daughter and that she will report to Gustavo. But she tells her Gustavo is coming the following day. That day, she breaks up with Gustavo, telling him she is in love with someone else. She receives a call from the sergeant, who tells her he thinks Evangelina deserves justice. He gives her a book that contains all of Ramirez's atrocities. On his way home, he gets hit by a car. She also gives the book to Josefina to hold on her behalf, and some days later, she gets shot by the road. She is taken for surgery, and Gustavo comes to check on her too. During her time in coma, the soldiers raid her house and injure Rosa to find the book. Gustavo realizes that he can't protect her from what's coming, so he asks Francisco to take her away as fast as he can. The general ensures her hospital is watched by military officials. When she wakes, she hears that the general has destroyed all evidence and all charges against Ramirez have been dropped. The captain had said the mountain was used by terrorists, So when she wakes, she tells Francisco to meet Josefina for the book in her audio, too. He tells her they can't release it until she escapes, and they disguise themselves to leave the country. Before leaving, he gives the book and audio to the cardinal, asking them to post it in a week. He escapes with her, disguising as a newly wedded couple going to Spain for their honeymoon. They stop at a hotel. After hearing the military actions, Gustavo turns on his leaders, leading to his death. However, he doesn't say anything he knows about them until he dies. The military catches their trails and chases after them, so they take a horse and escape. They stay in Spain for 15 years, and with the struggle of people like them, Chile gets her independence in 1989. They return to Chile, and the first thing they did was pay respect to Gustavo's grave, and the movie ends here. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. So, click any video of 3 of them, and enjoy next. Please don't forget to subscribe our channel, and please like the video, and tell us in the comment how you liked the video. I see you soon.